Good morning, welcome to our webinar and thank you for joining us today. I'm Hannah Shapansky and I'm from Mutual Ventures and I'll be chairing the conversation today with Caroline and Daniel. I'm very excited to be joined by Caroline and Daniel from Foster With Northeast, who have just launched the first regional fostering recruitment hub in England. So before I pass over to Caroline and Daniel to say hello, I'll just provide a bit of context about this webinar. So this is the latest in our series of webinars as part of the DfE's Fostering Recruitment and Retention Programme. And for those of us joining us outside of this programme, in short, this is about increasing the number of foster carers to provide more loving homes for our most vulnerable children. An essential focus of the programme is creating regional recruitment hubs as a service across groups of local authorities to manage the foster carer's journey from that point of initial inquiry all the way to application. And a key part of this is that the recruitment hub will be a single point of contact for those inquiring to foster and for ongoing emotional and practical advice on the approval process. So really looking forward to hearing today from Caroline and Daniel as the Pathfinder on the DfE's Fostering Recruitment and Retention Programme about their experience of establishing their regional fostering recruitment hub. And I think just before we kick off, it's worth saying that the hub in the Northeast has only just gone live at the end of September. So it's still very early days and we're really looking forward to hearing how it's gone. But the Northeast are only 6 months ahead of other clusters participating in the programme. So almost in this sense, everyone on the programme is a bit of a pathfinder when it comes to establishing these new regional fostering recruitment hubs. That being said, I know that Caroline and Daniel's experience of this and reflections so far will be really valuable for other local authorities participating in the programme and preparing to implement their fostering recruitment hubs. And also get the process started for fostering a process of collective learning. Thank you to those of you who have already submitted questions that we'll be asking Caroline and Daniel today. If you do have any questions as we get the discussion going, please do submit them using the Q&A function, and we'll try and get round to as many of these as possible. And we'll also be sharing a copy of the recording for those colleagues who were not able to make it today. Great. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Caroline and Daniel to introduce themselves.
Thank you. Shall I go first, Daniel? Hi, so I'm Caroline West and I'm a project manager here at Together for Children, which for those of you that don't know is the children's services function associated with Sunderland City Council, and we are the lead authority for the Northeast Regional Pathfinder for this fostering project, and I work in the transformation team here.
Hi everyone, morning, my name is Daniel Kenny. I manage the fostering service with Together for Children Sunderland, and I'm also the service lead for the Northeast Pathfinder project, and I've been in that post since April this year, as Caroline set out, with Together for Children being the lead authority for this project. Nice to see everybody.
Great, thank you. So to kick us off, can you start by telling us where you're at in the process of establishing your fostering recruitment hub and also any early successes that you've had?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said at the start of this, we've gone live 4 weeks ago, just at the end of September. So that was a huge moment for us. And we thought it might be useful if I were just to share on screen the high level timeline of what we've done. So if you just bear with me 1 second while I share my screen. Here we are. So this slide is what I usually include on my highlight reports to our board, which I usually do as a PowerPoint presentation. And this, we move the lines across every month. But as you can see, these are the key work streams to this, the high level work streams to this wider project from the outset. Legal and getting that collaboration agreement in place, which, as you can see, we had a bit of discussion, we worked with legal, and then it went to our cabinets for formal approval. That took about 2 months, and then the collaboration agreement was in place thereafter. The support hub itself, we developed, we recruited, And then there was preparation work with staff still coming online. And then we launched at the end of September. So this red line you can see is the date of the launch. The comms strand, equally important, same timescale. Development took quite a long time with the delivery partner, and then we launched that regional comms campaign to coincide with the support hub going live. So again, 4 weeks ago. Mockingbird happening and similar timescale, that is now being rolled out across the region, with LAs doing that independently. And then the review and evaluation has actually happened a lot sooner than I was expecting early on. So that you can sort of mentally pull that forward to now, because we've had early conversations there. So yes, we are live. And in terms of early successes from my perspective, if there's any other project managers on this call, which I imagine there are really only two things that you care about as a project manager. You care about a lot more, but the two biggest things are that you go live on time and on budget. Like, that's what you're measured by, and we did that, and we made it happen despite extremely short timescales from our perspective. It's been a challenge from the outset, but that's been great. The inquiries have started to come in, and I'm particularly pleased with the media coverage that we've had. We've been featured on Time Tees, ITV, and on BBC Look North, and so that's helped the inquiries to come in as well. Daniel?
Great. Yeah, thanks, Caroline. From my perspective, a similar journey, and I kind of got two hats on in this project. So having managing the fostering service with Sunderland, we're one of the receiving local authorities, and we're also leading this project. So we've got a bit of a vested interest to make this work, and ensure that ourselves within Sunderland are also receiving inquiries, as well as the North East. So I was involved at the beginning of the year as one of the regional fostering managers, and then when Together for Children were appointed as the lead authority, there was an opportunity then for a service lead to be appointed, and I was successful in that role. There were some conversations at that stage around Ofsted registration and the scope of this work, and how far it would encroach into registration. I'm sure those are the kind of, that's an area that services are considering at the moment. So our headline success is ultimately we achieved what we set out to do, and it was to go live with the regional support hub in the time frame that we set ourselves at the end of September. It's a fantastic achievement. The support and leadership that we had from senior people with Together for Children, also in the region, I think is key to getting this project off the ground, and really kind of utilising the existing networks that we all had in the different work streams that Caroline set out, whether it be operationally with managers or senior leaders, or everyone in between, to ensure that those existing networks that you all have form the basis of the projects going forward. And I think those existing relationships have really supported us going forward, and ensuring that whilst there are changes at service levels, hopefully there is a core group of people who have existing relationships who can move this project forward, and moving away from a mindset of competitiveness into one of collaboration. We literally named the agreement a collaboration agreement intentionally, so to focus minds on that we're working towards a mutual aim of increasing recruitment and retention, something that we all recognise is needed locally and nationally. So it was about kind of bringing folks' mindset to that whenever things got tricky. But we had some early successes, some really nice media and PR coverage that Caroline has mentioned. We've been receiving some inquiries, which is great. That's what we're in the business about, and look forward to supporting those carers through their journey, and hopefully becoming carers with each authority for a long time in the future.
Thank you both. That's really positive and exciting news. And I know that a lot of hard work's gone into getting you to this point. And Caroline, I think you've already touched on some of the challenges, like, for example, the timescales. So I wondered if we could speak about that a bit more, and about the biggest challenges or obstacles you encountered during the implementation process, but also how you overcame them as a region.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that you can't even ask us one question without it coming up what the two sort of key challenges were that we've experienced. And it has been very present throughout the entire piece of work from the outset, around the timescales being very tight. We all know that this is a DFE priority. It's been no uncertain terms, and if there are DFE colleagues on the call, they've worked with us very closely. We've met with them weekly, usually multiple times every week throughout this process, because we know that the timescales were very tight to deliver this, including to see results. You know, we don't have much time before we need to make a decision about the future, so that's been ever present. The way that we've worked with that is to have really robust project plans, deadlines, and just the right people in the right place at the right time in your work streams, clear responsibilities, and all the good stuff that project managers do. If you've got a great service lead that you can work with, like Daniel, we have, then that makes it a lot easier, because it's you move things along at pace. And we've also had good partners on this. So our GOS, we'll talk about it later perhaps, but in terms of technology, our GOS partner who delivered our website and our case management system were fortunately able to work very flexibly in a very short timescale. So we were lucky there. And recruitment, we fast-tracked recruitment as much as we could, really. And yes, the other biggest challenge that Daniel talked about there being around moving from, as he said, a competitive mindset to a collaborative mindset. And I think it would be fair to say there's still a little bit of work to be done there, because we're still not out the other side of this. And it is a challenge, because we've worked that way for decades. And so how can we do that? And the way that, you know, by changing, we originally had a legal agreement document that we were all supposed to sign, and we changed the wording of that to be a collaborative agreement, ways of working, doing things differently, acknowledging as a group together that we need to be inclusive, we need to share, and that we need to increase our foster carers for the region, for the children and young people of the whole of the Northeast. So it doesn't matter if Sunderland lose a couple, as long as the Northeast as a whole is gaining a number. You know, it's for all of our children, and that's a really difficult mindset shift. But we worked together with the region and the members of our various workstream groups. So we've got about 4 different layers of people from across the region that join us in data, comms, and in the project board, and just working together with them to get that buy-in.
That's
Daniel?
really helpful. Thank you. Yeah, Daniel, please come in.
Yeah, just picking up on a couple of kind of points Caroline's raised, and offering kind of some view on some different challenges. I have responsibility for the staffing of the hub and ensuring that. And so primarily the challenge was, what do we need? How many do we need? What do we need? And we're working. You know, we made some best guesses and some estimates around previous year's performance in the Northeast, and understanding how many social workers. Do we need social workers? Do we not need social workers? And do we need some lead communications people? Do we need some data and performance? So that was a challenge to understand, to work out ultimately what does that hub look like. Similarly, because it was it's a time limited project, that's an added challenge around ensuring that you're able to get the most suitable people into post when they're often going to be temporary contracts, and that's tricky, particularly when we made the decision to recruit foster and social workers, part of our offer, to ensure that you receive the warmest of welcomes with the most experienced and skilled people on the end of that call, and to get those people into post, that's not easy. Good social workers are in jobs, and they're in permanent ones. And that was really tricky. So we made a decision as a region to move away from offering temporary posts to offering a permanent post, even though the project is time limited, and that allowed us to ensure that obviously the recruitment offer changed, and allowed us to have some interest, some wider interest. I was already working with a group of fostering social workers across the region as we developed an operation subgroup to understand the current way of working. In the Northeast, there's 12 authorities with Foster with Northeast. That's a large number of authorities. It's a large area geographically. and we all do things slightly differently. And I need you to understand what those experiences were like for social workers and for applicants under assessment. So we use that to feed into the staffing model, and then to make that decision that we need staff to offer permanent contracts. Going back to the kind of first question, Hannah, I think that's been a real success so far. That the quality of the staff we're being able to recruit, and without those good people in post, to make a real success of it, you need those people, because ultimately they're the face, they're the voice of the project when applicants are making those inquiries. So despite all the kind of project work, all that happens, applicants won't see that. Applicants will see who rings them back and who answers their call, and that's really important to get those good people in post. And I think that is a success, but it hasn't been easy. It has been a challenge to get the project to recognise that we needed permanent staff, recognise what type of staff we needed, to ensure that they're paid right, that they're to ensure that those kind of terms and conditions are there to attract people. Because people were interested. It is an interesting thing to work in. But ultimately, people have to be think about themselves and their own kind of personal circumstances. So definite challenge, but similarly, I think we've kind of come through that and some successes as well.
That's really helpful. And just a follow-up question on that one, Daniel. What does your staffing model now look like?
Yeah, so it's shifted during the project. Give just a bit of a kind of longer answer. And that kind of came out around the changes during some of the conversations and the work streams that Caroline has set out, and at the different levels, whether it was myself talking to social workers and team managers, or a project board, so they were typically service managers and heads of service, or just kind of generally as a Together for Children project team, understanding actually what do we need, and because we also offer pre-approval training as part of our support offer, so we needed social workers who have an experience of delivering training to applicants, as well as really experienced fostering skills, knowledge, and experience. So we were talking originally around having some training officers within that. So I made the decision to move away from training officers to increase the number of social workers, fostering social workers that we have. So we have in terms of kind of numbers, we have an assistant hub officer who's a qualified social worker, and then we have 3 experienced fostering social workers. And intentionally so, we were really lucky to have someone from the north of the region, the centre of the region, and the south of the region, and obviously ourselves in Sunderland, we're also the kind of centre of the northeast as well geographically, and we found that's really important around developing the existing relationships and understanding the processes that those social workers have in Northumberland, in Durham, in Sunderland, and in Middlesbrough, and ensuring that those authorities are on the journey with us. It would have been easier for me to recruit or transfer 3 social workers from the fostering team in Sunderland. That we could have done something like that. We intentionally made it harder for ourselves to recruit externally, to recruit from across the region, to ensure that regional buy-in and a regional collaboration. And when I'm speaking to the manager of Northumberland and the manager of Durham and the manager of Middlesbrough, that they know there is a sense of trust that their social workers are working within the hub, that they'll know how things work and they'll know how those areas work. We also have a data and performance officer as well, and Daisy, who works with us, complements Together for Children's existing performance and performance monitoring team, specifically focused on monitoring and analysing the hub's performance. So that's the team. So small but perfectly formed, and we're kind of, we're 4 weeks in. We're only understanding now, is that the right number? Is it too few, or have we got it right? And that, we're still learning as we go. I think bring it back to the question around kind of challenges. We haven't got all the answers. We're part of the project was to understand, is that the right number? And work through kind of issues around contingency and sickness and holidays. You need enough people in, and all the kind of thing, all the staffing considerations that people will have as managers on the call, and making sure you've got enough people to run the business, and understanding what that will look like. How many calls will we receive? How many contacts will we receive? Making sure we can meet the targets that we set ourselves. So
That's
it's, understanding. So we come up with a number, do some number crunching. How many people can do that? How many people need to do that? And see how it goes.
great. Thank you. That's really helpful. And we know already that keeping foster carers at the heart of all of this is really important to make sure that the programme works. It'd be really great to hear how you've engaged existing and potential foster carers throughout the process, both in terms of implementation and how you designed your recruitment hub, and also what their involvement will be ongoing now that the hub is live.
Yeah, I'll come in there, Hannah. The key stakeholders to ensure that we've got real representation around the development and implementation and ongoing rollout of the support hub. It was a real key area from us. We're social workers here. We think we know what we need, but we're not foster carers, and we needed to understand what that experience has been like. So we've had several sessions from pretty early on, meeting with both experienced and newly approved foster carers to understand the different perspectives and different experiences of what it's been like for those carers regionally. We've met with them, as I say, several occasions to understand and support our decision making around things from logo to the call to action, to the visual ID, to the development of the case management system, the influence, the staffing model in terms of what that looked like. Didn't make too many big decisions without going through that route and getting an opinion from that carer group. So that was definitely part of the kind of implementation element of the project, and then kind of therefore after, foster carers and experienced foster carers absolutely have a role to play in recruitment, and we've established a regional buddy scheme, which we've launched, and that buddy scheme will aim to use those carers within the Northeast to support the journey from applicants from the outset. Many services will already have buddy schemes. Some will be really well embedded, but buddy schemes don't always start from inquiry stage and assessment. They typically start once carers are approved. So we wanted to bring carers into that support, handhold and journey from the outset. So we set up, we've had a really lucky, we had an existing relationship with a colleague who established the buddy scheme in Birmingham, and she supported us and has developed the training modules, and has met with carers here in the Northeast on several occasions to get that off the ground. One of my social workers in the hub leads on the buddy scheme, and has been a key part in its success to ensure that we've got experienced foster carers immediately available to applicants when they submit an inquiry. Similarly, we all know people will drop out during that journey, and we need to understand as much as we can about that. And carers can support us with that as well. Exit type interview arrangements. Is there anything else we can do? Learning from that, and gathering that feedback all of the time. So to kind of summarize, Hannah, yeah, really kind of key, engage with your groups as much as you can, understand regionally what that experience has been like. Engaging applicants as a group is trickier. That's not an existing network that you already will have. But I think that leads into your kind of comms and your marketing and your PR plan. And ultimately, can you then bring those groups of who were applicants at the time, can you bring them together? What else can the support hub do during those early stages? And can you see those people collectively? Can you offer them any sort of additional service that collectively that you wouldn't typically do now as your own authority? Can you see them differently? So I think that's something that we would like to look at in the future. Is there something we can do as we kind of now? We've run our first training, kind of my final point around carers. So carers are now working with us to deliver the skills to foster training that we're doing for the region, which is, applicants want to speak to foster carers. I think we all can recognise that. They want to know what it's like and learn from their experiences, and they've got a key role to play. So the buddy scheme, the training are really good examples of how we're able to link applicants to carers.
Thanks, Daniel. That's a really nice summary. A bit of a tricky one now, but an issue that we've been hearing about from local authority clusters is the issue of allocating foster carers to local authorities where they don't already express a preference about where they want to foster. I wondered if you could talk us through how you're approaching this issue in the Northeast.
Tricky. Yeah, it's one word to describe it. It is tricky. It has been tricky. And we needed a position. You know, we talked about it for a long time and recognised that yes, this could be problematic. How are we going to solve that? And we made the decision ultimately on who do you pay council tax to, and that's your home local authority. And unless you have a preference to go elsewhere, your inquiry will be submitted to your home local authority. That's been our position. It's been our position for some time, but it hasn't been easy to to embed that position. And we've talked on a few occasions now around collaboration, not competitiveness, and bring folks back to ultimately the aims of the project. And even though we all border each other in the Northeast, and some border more than one. So this is an existing issue for some authorities, and they recognise that this is tricky. It has always been and will continue to be so. So we needed a position. We needed to say that really clearly. This is how we're going to work it, and we will implement it. And then we will ultimately review. We'll continue to review our decisions and our kind of our practice decisions. But it hasn't been easy to convince that that's the right course of action. We couldn't come up with too many alternatives to that being the position to go with. And it's similarly, we needed a position to support wider areas development, particularly around ICT and case management systems and the recording of those inquiries. So quite early on, we needed a position, a workable one, and that's what we went with. We're 4 weeks in. We're running around about 10 expressions of interest a week, which we're satisfied with. I think it is a good number, being 4 weeks in, and with that position is working. I would say, as to kind of give an answer, there has been some variations to it where. And we'll respond individually to authorities around the decision making, but it's been tricky to ensure that there has been a clear message through different work streams, and particularly through the communications and comms and marketing subgroup, that this is our position, because there's been a sense of, not mistrust, I think that's the wrong word, but we'll need to evidence and demonstrate that it works. So until we went live, it was best guesses. It was thought, actually, this is our position, we'll see how things go. And until we kind of go live, and until because the vast majority of people 4 weeks in don't have a preference, don't even think you can have a preference, and there is an assumption you've got your home local authority. I think it was more of an issue for managers and senior leaders than it ever will be for applicants. Applicants, I don't think, mind. They want to be foster carers. I don't think they even know there is a preference, the majority. So it was more of an issue for us. But we needed embedded with that. Leadership helped as well, Hannah, from the project board, which is our kind of wider governance board around decision making, to ensure this is our position and this is where things will go. But I will be really interested in if others come from a different perspective and go for something slightly different in terms of kind of their approach. But yeah, that's how we worked it. Caroline?
Yeah, I would like to add on to that conversation did evolve over time, and very, very early on, and probably before you even joined the project, Daniel, very early days, there was a very strong sense of, no, we absolutely need to make sure that foster carers still have a choice, and that they get to choose, and that they have all the information they deserve. But that's because we were still back in the competitive mindset, and we hadn't yet moved to this new mindset, and that really is the crux of all this. So that, as Daniel's described, is the approach that we take, but we fully expect to review it. I for one, personally speaking, I was on tenterhooks to see whether we would get one inquiry for each of the 12 LAs. So the 12 LAs in our region, and all 12 of them are signed up to this project. And I was worried that, what if we have one that never gets any, and then, what will that look like? But they all have, and it's worked out really equitably, and that's brilliant. But if that hadn't happened, the question, I suppose, to the clusters is, do you have a plan B? Do you know what your plan would be if all, like, 80% of your carers all went to 2 of your 12 LAs and all the others didn't get any? How do you argue that out as a region? Have you considered, and we would consider, something like an independent panel that consists of representatives from the region, but also independent people that are not invested in that way? And but is the collaborative mindset enough to move us in that direction? We haven't reached that stage yet, but we're still learning and prepared to review as we go on. But only time will tell. Only the numbers of those coming through and how they map out can inform how we need to work going forward. So we stay flexible.
Yeah, that's a really comprehensive answer. Thank you. Now, we've been asked a question about your approach to your marketing campaign and how you dealt with that as a region. So was there a combined marketing effort with joint budgets, or how was that handled?
Yeah, do you want to go with that one, Caroline?
Yeah, so this was because we were the first, because we were the DfE's Pathfinder pilot region. There were 3 major strands of this project, and launching the hub was one, Mockingbird was one, and the comms campaign element was also a major work stream as part of this project, and it had its own significant funding work stream from the DfE. So there was never a question of, like, how much do each of the 12 LAs need to put into this, because we had funding to launch the regional hub through a comprehensive comms campaign. What I will say is that funding didn't go anywhere near as far as we'd expected it to in the first place. So we were quite limited as to our choices, and actually, I would say we have ended up bolstering that through the various things locally. And also, we still needed local events and things to continue. This was more of a focus on rebranding the visual identity, because of course, everybody's got their own merchandise with their phone number on and all that, and that needed to go. So really, really important that we are able, as part of this piece of work, to replace all of that stuff so that all the inquiries, the call to action, is coming in to the hub. So we were fortunate that we had not only the DfE, but also their media delivery partner, Red Havas, doing a lot of this work through that funding work stream. So it enabled a really collaborative group and mindset, because it was all sort of done from a central approach, which I'm not sure how it works in the clusters, but I imagine it won't work quite the same. But we are looking at how that might work in the future, of course. But the truth is, we haven't taken a final decision on exactly how we will fund it. Some LAs will, I'm sure, want to keep their individual budgets, but we haven't had those detailed discussions about what the expectation is. Although I don't know, Daniel, I imagine we would very much welcome having a continued central advertising approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So as kind of Caroline said, I was a standalone work stream, primarily led by colleagues with the Department of Education. More recently, we've probably kind of maybe taken more of operational lead regionally, but it's been a significant work stream. And yeah, really big part of the work that we've been doing to ensure that the call to action is right, the decisions that we make around imagery and visual ID and PR are meets everyone's needs. And when you've got 12 voices, that's not always easy. To when what Northumberland might like is sometimes slightly different what Darlington might like. And services always have their existing kind of communications campaigns ongoing as well. So it's been tricky for that to work through to ensure that there is that kind of consistency in some of that messaging, and we needed to be clear around the decisions around it. How can existing communication campaigns work alongside this one, and how can they be connected? Because it's not about replacing existing campaigns, but it's about complementing them, but ensuring that any inquiries received are managed and received into the hub. And I think ensuring that that's been your position for some time, and talking exclusively to kind of to comms and media managers within local authorities has been really important to ensure that those people have been involved from really early on, because it's been this work has been such a the communications campaign has been such a significant part of the project from really early on, and I think it's really key to its successes as well.
Thanks, Daniel. Jumping around a bit now, but we have had a question in the chat about whether your local authorities have the same IT system. And if not, have you experienced any difficulties in kind of information sharing between individual systems?
Okay, yeah, IT. We're never far away from that kind of world, really, and it's been similarly a real big part of the project. Around how do we record, what do we record, where do we record it, what do we do with that information. There was a separate standalone work stream which supported some of that decision making from the outset, where primarily it was performance and data, but certainly ICT and systems was part of that conversation. Similarly, we had a project team here in Sunderland that unpicked some of those decisions around actually what do we need, what are the workable options available to us given the time scale and budgets that we have. The vast majority of services do use the same system, and using existing systems was an option, but we didn't go with that. We went with something standalone and bespoke, which is the decision that we made due to the cost, due to the timeliness and the deadlines that we had. But we need to ensure that the system that we went with would allow us that really smooth information sharing and data exchange out to authorities and back into us, to ensure we were able to monitor, analyse and evaluate the applicants' journeys, the timeliness of those journeys as well, and some qualitative data as well. Big part of the work. Definitely helps if folks are using the same systems. Logic is pretty much the kind of children's services system of choice here in the Northeast. But we don't use that. We're using something bespoke. It's a back office system. That's an extension of the website. That's what we use. Caroline?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on the point about our options, because this is something that, I was especially keen to make sure that we made the right decision. And be honest, it wasn't an easy decision, because we only had really something like 3 months to figure out how we were going to deliver this. The truth is, at the very outset of this piece of work, I had not anticipated that there would be a case management system implementation as part of this piece of work. And it was only as time went on that we realized that it wasn't going to work just shoving it in our existing system. But we considered it closely and thought, it would make life simpler in many ways. But essentially, our 3 options were: record it in Liquid Logic that we use in Together for Children, record it on a bespoke system that we'd have to build from scratch, or use Word documents and spreadsheets. And I think all of us are pretty much in agreement that we've moved away from that now. We can do better, and we want to be able to output data in a meaningful way, like Daniel's described there. So we talked about using Liquid Logic or having a bespoke system. And ultimately, I think the biggest reason that we didn't choose to use our existing system was an uncomfortableness around recording this centralized regional data in a system that is for Sunderland's children and young people and foster carers. And that's not right. It just didn't, we couldn't see how it could sit together safely, appropriately, short of buying a whole new Liquid Logic instance, which just simply in the timescale and the budget available just didn't even seem worth exploring. So that's why we were fortunate to be able to implement a bespoke system in the time that we had. Just for general info, my background years ago is in Liquid Logic implementation. I led a couple of those. So I was particularly interested in this work stream, and I think it's a miracle that we were able to deliver something in 8 weeks, essentially, from the point of signing off the start of that implementation to going live with it. And our partners were fantastic. So I definitely recommend thinking about this very early and very carefully, and you'd be surprised how much detail you need very early as to how you're going to record these things, what you need to record in detail. So yes, do start that work stream early.
It's good promo for our next webinar, Caroline. Perfect on, which is on technology. Great. Another tricky question. Apologies from me. So, have you had conversations about different local authority fees and financial benefits across the region, and particularly how have you approached these to encourage that collaboration, not competition, which is kind of driving why you're working together in the Northeast?
Yeah,
I'll
come in there, Caroline. Whoever had 40 minutes in for us in the sweepstake for fees and allowances, they're the winner. We're never far away, are we, from the conversation around fees and allowances? It's probably it's definitely initially it was. I remember some meetings back at the beginning of the year, and they were the conversation starters. How could you possibly do a regional recruitment and support campaign when everyone is being paid and supported slightly differently? And that continues. People are paid differently in the Northeast. There isn't fee and allowance. There isn't fee harmonisation here yet. I think we're all interested in see how far those conversations can go, and can we actually implement something to support that. It's been difficult. It's an extension of the answer around allocations and kind of equitable allocation of applicant and expression of interest. If Middlesbrough were paying £50 a week more than Redcar Cleveland, well, why would anyone go to Redcar Cleveland? That's an example of what we've had to understand and try and work through how we can manage that. When applicants are contacting us, well, take a step back. We were unsure how to answer the question when applicants would ask us. We needed to have a position publicly on the website, but also when applicants are contacting us and understanding what fees and allowances they will be paid. We recognise that becoming a carer is a paid role. It's really important, and that kind of professionalisation and that it is paid. It's important that we do that. But in terms of ourselves within the hub, we're not giving those examples of this is what you paid here and this is what you paid there. We're clear around that as our position, and that those conversations need to be taking place directly with local authorities. Local authorities are still guarded in terms of sharing fees and allowances with ourselves centrally. I think there's still that competitiveness and mindful, actually, if I pay slightly less, how will that impact my recruitment? We're not there yet in that space. It definitely want to be something that we'd like to move towards, and understand how we can do that if this project could move in further work. Has been tricky, continues to be. We're ultimately directing those conversations with applicants to home authorities to discuss those.
Yeah, if I could add to that, Hannah, I think it's important to note that we've always seen those conversations as happening at a very high level across the region. So it's absolutely our directors that need to be having those initial discussions. It's not something that we've ever really discussed at project board level, because we're implementing very specific work streams here. It's about assurance and monitoring of that work getting done. That is not part of the work that I have promised to deliver as a project manager, but it's important to this piece of work, and those conversations are happening. What's interesting to me is that, as Daniel mentioned earlier, what we're finding is that when the inquiries come through, many of the applicants don't have a preference to where they go. And actually, I think if that were to pan out longer term, my feeling, this is just a personal note really, but my feeling is that local authorities will begin to see that actually, if they pay more than somewhere else, it doesn't necessarily matter, because the hub is directing everyone to wherever they live to a certain proportion. So how much is that additional fee impacting on where people go? I don't know. Maybe that's just an optimistic view, but that is something that will come into play over time as we see how the hub works. So for us, it fits that the fee harmonisation discussion is there in the background, but is not forefront at this stage. We need to embed the work that we're doing, work differently together, change that mindset to then be able to have those more difficult conversations going forward.
Yeah, that makes sense as a slightly kind of longer term journey and goalpost. That's really helpful. We've had a couple of questions about the user journey for prospective foster carers. So particularly, is all recruitment within the hub, or are local authorities continuing their own recruitment programs? And if someone comes to a local authority interested in foster caring, do they get directed straight to the hub?
Okay, yeah, I think that's probably a question I can answer. It's okay. So we've been really clear. Okay, I can kind of take a step back to some of the conversations earlier in the project. Communications and marketing and recruitment mean different things to different authorities. And we'll have on the call, I'm sure we'll have some large authorities and some smaller ones, and we'll have some ones with budgets and some with literally no budget. And it was really important for us to understand what does recruitment and marketing look like for everybody, because it isn't the same. So when we needed that position, and that wasn't easy, because when people were talking about recruitment and marketing, we're talking about tens of £1,000s to a media buying partner, or actually it could be just dishing out some leaflets in your local Costa Coffee. Those things can mean different things to different services. It's important we understood that this work isn't about replacing that work. It's about complementing it, and complementing what works already in the region, or what already works in individual authorities. So for Middlesbrough, going to a local hospital and having a pop-up stand there, if that works for them, absolutely. This is not about replacing that. Why would we? The second part is really important, that all those inquiries are received by the hub, so that you can continue to do your local activities, but you can't then receive and manage those and manage those inquiries. It has to, otherwise the hub is, the hub's, it's no purpose of the hub. The hub is, our data would be incorrect. They're not all applicants in the North East are receiving different levels of service. So you can, our advice was, and our position is, you can continue to do your local campaigns, whether that's paid or unpaid, big or small, but every applicant has to be directed through the hub. Caroline mentioned earlier around materials, so your banners, your billboards, your phone numbers, your websites. Really clear through our communications work stream that there is consistency around the direction that applicants have to follow. And when we went live, there was, Hannah, Haley, who we work really closely with, our communications lead. Haley has really good existing relationships in the region with her communications and marketing colleagues, and ensuring that when we did go live, that there is a consistent message across the region, that if you express an interest in becoming a carer, there is now only one direction. You can only come through Foster with North East, and we're really clear. What we have seen, there is some legacy issues before we went live, particularly through kind of some social media campaigns that services might have already had ongoing, and that they've just needed to run its course. But we do have the option for authorities to then contact the hub on behalf of the applicant. We've got to make sure from the 27th of September that anyone expressing an interest in becoming a carer of the North East is directed through Foster with North East Hub. And we continue with that message, continue with the conversations with colleagues to ensure that they're really clear, speaking to social workers, speaking to managers regularly and consistently with that same message, to when people change. We've seen that managers have moved on, senior managers have moved on. So we need to, reiterate and embed our position around that area.
Thank you. And I'm just conscious of time. I think there's been some really good insights so far, and I hope everyone on the call has found it useful. But before we wrap up, I do have one final question, and that is, if you were to offer participating local authorities one piece of advice as they start to implement their fostering recruitment hubs, what would that advice be?
Caroline, do you want to answer that one first?
Yeah, sure. So from a project manager's perspective on this piece of work, you can do your job as well as you can do, and you can deliver things on time and to budget, but only really if you have the right people supporting you, and particularly, well, in fact, from all directions, those that are on the project team, the people that you've got involved across the region, but foundationally, really critically, having the real support from above. We are very lucky in this regional project that we have a single strong lead in the shape of our CEO, Jill Colbert, who has really strong relationships with other directors in the region, is viewed positively in the region and respected, and the other DCSs listen to her, which is a huge benefit to us. So in that sense, who your lead LA is matters, but do have the right level of support above you. I think if it's just a fostering manager, that is just a foster. I mean, obviously we respect our fostering managers very much, but you need that higher level buy-in, and just making sure that that person feels involved, and it can actively be involved at the sticky moments. For example, that conversation about fees harmonisation, where I mentioned before, it's got to come from above and really bring the region together, where, you know, there have been times where there have been question marks over certain elements of the project and some LA's not quite comfortable, and she's been able to step in and really just build that back up and get that buy-in. So just having that really good, strong foundation for this project to sit on, and a strong single leader, really important.
Thanks, Caroline. And Daniel?
Yeah, just in addition to the kind of leadership answer, I think mine would be around utilize your existing networks and relationships that you already have regionally. And we kind of come back to the relationship point on, you know, regularly. So to ensure that, you know, I think to make a success, that's really key. Utilizing that, utilizing those relationships that you already have in whatever work stream it might already be, establishing your project team, utilizing all of their networks in their own respective areas of expertise, and get the right people in the right meetings to make the right decisions. I think when that happens, it works, and when it doesn't, you know, the opposite happens. So I think that would probably be kind of 2 or 3 things. Use your networks, use your already kind of relationships that you already have, which have already been, you know, well embedded. That good project team, get the right people in the right meetings. And even, you know, kind of finally, we talked about, you know, obviously we're on a Teams Zoom thing today, but we talked regularly about having these meetings face to face, and the need for personal relationships and the value of personal relationships when you're working on this kind of scale with a large number of authorities. Services were quite happy to continue online. We wanted to meet face to face to support the relationships, because I think it's been key to the success of the project.
Great. I think that's a really nice place to leave it, and really good advice. So I'm going to bring us to a close at this point, but thank you so much, Daniel and Caroline, for your time today and for answering all those questions so detailed. I know it'll be really appreciated by local authorities on the call, and to others that are just interested in your experience so far. Of course, everyone's going to have a different journey as they embark on implementing their regional fostering recruitment hubs, but what really stands out from what you said there was kind of the importance of leadership, the importance of relationships and regional buying, and just a commitment to doing things differently as well to increase those number of foster carers for children in the Northeast and hopefully across the country as well. I'm conscious that we didn't get round to every single question because we had quite a lot of people in attendance today. But if you do have outstanding questions, please do feel free to email me or speak to your coaches. We will be sharing a recording of the webinar for colleagues that aren't able to attend today shortly. And we'll continue to work with Caroline and Daniel to collect learning about their progress and how their recruitment hub's going. And we'll share this back with you as much as we can. I'm sure this won't be the last time you see them either. Caroline has very kindly agreed to come to a community of interest group in the new year. So cluster leads will have an opportunity to meet her then. As I mentioned earlier, the next webinar in this series is on the 31st of October, and it's about getting the technology right for your regional recruitment hub. So let me know if you would like an invitation to that. And we always welcome feedback or suggestions about what these webinars and learning events should cover. So please do feel free to put a comment in the chat box or reach out after this. And finally, I just want to say a thank you to Daniel and Caroline one more time, and thank you as well for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.